Hello and welcome to Lesson 6 of Unit 5. So look for the 6th lesson in your 5th unit book. The first activity says dog run, and it shows 5 different pictures of a dog taken at equal intervals of time. Diego and Lynn drew different graphs to represent this situation. So again, this whole lesson is going to be about functions drawn in graph form. So it says they both use time as the independent variable, so that means that this is time here, which means this is distance. Okay. Explain your reasoning. So in Diego's case, the distance is getting farther as the time moves along. So that means that he's probably using like the back of the picture. So like this edge here between the dirt and the grass, I guess, in relation to the dog. So it's equal, and then it's a little bit farther, and then it's way farther. So Diego's is distance from edge. Lynn's is the opposite, so that would mean that the dog is getting closer and closer to the object that they're trying to make us guess. So that means that she would be measuring from distance from the photographer or the camera. Because of the fact that as the dog moves along, the dog gets, and you could even kind of just draw like this. The dog gets closer, that matches that graph like this. And then the other one is the opposite, in that the dog sort of gets farther and farther away from the grass. Okay. Activity 2, which graph is it? Elena filled up the tub and gave her small dog a bath, and she let the water out of the tub. So, which one of these graphs would fit that situation? So first she filled up the tub. Then she gave the dog a bath. Then she let the water out. Oops, that was an accident. So that's 3 distinct phases. So phase 1, wait, let me stick with the same colors. Okay, phase 1, if I were just drawing this on my own, is for sure an increase because she's filling the tub. Phase 2, she's giving the dog a bath, nothing's happening. The water is staying the same, most likely. It doesn't say anything else, so I'd assume. Then last, she lets the water out of the tub. So she loses the water. The graph that matches that is this. I hope that kind of helps people understand like how these problems look in line form. Sometimes it's easier just to draw it yourself and then find the one that looks like you're drawing. Okay, activity 2 continued. For each situation, name the independent and dependent variables. Pick the graph that best fits the situation, or sketch a graph if one isn't provided. Label the axes and answer the question, which quantity is a function of which? Be prepared to explain your reasoning. That would just be in writing. Okay, so question 1 says, Jada is training for a swimming race. The more she practices, the less time it takes for her to swim one lap. So if I said that this is practice here, amount of, and then if I said this was time per lap, at first she had to practice a lot and her time was slow, right? And then as she practices more, her time gets faster. So that's like this gap is shorter because her time is getting faster and her practice time is getting less. So it'd be this one. Label, we labeled it. Which quantity is a function of which? Be prepared to explain your reasoning. So we could say that the amount of practice is a function of what? Her time to swim the lap? How would we say that? Because we're saying practice time is what, or where did I put it? Independent variable is the time, and pace is dependent. No, we reverse that. Let's do it the other way. So what if we did, let's see. So what if we said, actually, let's look at the middle one, and if we did this, and then we'll come back to that one, because I'm actually thinking that the way I did it was good. If this was practice time, and this was pace, and for this one we said pace and practice time. Okay, so I think this will make more sense. On the left-sided one, practice time and pace, she gets faster as she practices more. I just feel like I was saying it really weirdly before. So practice time is this, and her pace is getting faster and faster. The other one is showing that the more that she practices, the faster her pace becomes. So it's kind of just going to be the opposite curve. So you could say either one of those is correct. And then you would just say for the function, it just depends on what graph you're looking at. So we could say the dependent variable is a function of the independent variable. So that's y, that's x. So practice for the first one, say practice time is a function of pace. Something like that. Okay. Andre adds money to a jar in his room each week for 3 weeks, and then he takes them out in week 4. So they want us to draw this. Okay. So let's start by labeling the graph. Let's say we put weeks on the x, or the independent variable, and let's say we put money on the y, or the dependent variable, like that. Okay. He adds the money to a jar in his room each week for 3 weeks. So that means that, like, he adds money, he adds money, he adds money. It's going up. And then he takes some out in week 4. We don't know how much, but he takes some out. So you'd have a graph that looks something like that. So what else do we need to do? Okay, which quantity is a function of which? So if we were to write this in our sentence about saying it as a function, just like we said practice time is a function of pace, we'd want to say that the dependent variable is a function of the independent variable. Remember, this is dependent, this is independent. So we'd say money in the jar, it doesn't really matter if you say that, is a function of number of weeks. So you can just use that rule always. Dependent is a function of independent. All right. We are skipping this entire part because it would have involved working in a group, and I just don't really think it's going to be that interesting to do on your own, and it takes a long time. So you get to skip that, but you do need to do your practice problems still. So we went over, I can draw the graph of a function that represents a real world situation. So we did that here in this final question number 2. And if we did do the third one, we would have drawn a graph as well. Okay. Remember, help time has changed, and now it is help 11:35 to 12:05.